Caller user 6, can you identify yourself, please?
Yeah, hi, this is John Halleck with Olson Kundig.
For which item?
Item for 3220 Canby. I'm with the architecture firm.
Great, thank you. Hi, Councilor Dominato, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, thanks, Rosemary.
Thanks. How about you, Councilor Fry?
Coming through loud and clear, Rosemary.
Great, thank you. Hello, Mayor Stewart. Long time no see. How's the audio on your side?
Audio's okay. I've logged into the mayor's panel and it's not quite. In fact, I think I see somebody else is doing some work on the screen, writing a letter to council meeting amendments. So maybe I've got the clerks on my screen, so I'll need IT to switch me over.
Okay, hang on a second. Mayor Stewart, you should be able to get the remote icon on your desktop.
Yeah, I did it under the Mayor Stewart one.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, that's where I'm in. But when I pull up the voting panel, it says Council Chambers AV logged on and then test. I can't get beyond that.
Okay, we'll look at it.
Okay, thanks.
Hi, Gail. Can we do an audio check with you?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep, that sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, great, thanks.
Councillor Weeb, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Great, thank you. Mayor Stewart, can you have a look again? I think you should be okay now. I think you're muted. I'm not able to hear you.
Sorry, it says, please wait, the session was interrupted on the remote side. Please wait while any desk is trying to restore the session.
Okay, give us a sec.
Okay, there it is. I think I'm good now.
Okay, great, thank you. And you do have quorum. Over to you, Mayor Stewart.
Great. Thank you very much, everybody. Now I'll call this public hearing of Tuesday, June 23rd to order. Just so we have maintained quorum, council, please ensure your video is turned on. This meeting is convened by electronic means, authorized under the order of the Minister of Public Safety, Emergency Program Act, order number M192. And as such, council members are participating by phone, and as chair of this meeting, I'm also participating by phone. If my connection is lost, we'll recess the meeting until my connection is restored. If council loses connection during any portion of the hearing, we'll need to recess the meeting until the connection is restored. If council loses connection during the voting process, we'll have staff on hand to facilitate getting you back online quickly while we suspend the voting process. And you have the contact information. You also have to let clerks know if you are going to leave through any part of the meeting so we can maintain quorum. So let us know if you have to leave for any reason. The live stream of this meeting will continue with audio only as council are participating in this meeting by phone. Presentations, amendments, and vote results will be projected to viewers when available. Lastly, we have speakers who will be providing comments to council by phone, and a moderator will assist in patching the speakers through when their turn comes up. Clerk, can we have the roll call, please?
Mayor Stewart is in the chair. Councillor Carr.
Here.
Councillor DeGenova? Councillor DeGenova, are you on the line yet? Councillor Fry?
Here?
Councillor DeGenova, was that you that I heard?
No, Rosemary, that was me, Councillor Fry.
Yes, I got you. Thank you. Councillor Swanson?
Here.
Councillor Hardwick?
Present.
Councillor Weeb?
Present.
Councillor Boyle?
Present.
Councillor Dominato?
Present.
Councillor Bly? Councillor Bly, are you on the line?
Present.
And Councillor Kobe-Young?
Present.
You have quorum, Mayor Stewart.
Thanks very much. First, we acknowledge we're in the unceded traditional territories of Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh, and thank you for having care for those lands. And we're enjoying working with them in partnership as we continue to build this great city together. And we want to thank the great staff here at the city who are doing an incredible job to make this one of the best places to live in the world. Thank you, staff. Before we begin, I have some announcements. Speakers will have 5 minutes to make their comments and should limit their comments to the merits of the report being considered. Speakers should also state whether they are in support or opposed to the recommendations. Speakers may only speak once and should follow along on Twitter at Van City Clerks for updates on the progress of the meeting so they don't miss their turn to speak. Any comments on agenda items can be submitted in writing to publichearing@vancouver.ca. Speakers with presentations are reminded that the public live feed has a slight 20-second delay. To navigate through the slides of your presentation, please say next. Finally, if Council does not conclude hearing from all speakers this evening, we will recess and reconvene the meeting at the Special Council meeting on Tuesday, June 30th at 3 p.m. by electronic means. Let's see. A reminder that Council's role at the public hearing is to be a quasi-judicial body, which means the Council is to only consider the merits of the rezoning application or heritage designation. Council members may ask clarifying questions from speakers, including the applicant, or technical advice from staff, but should save debate for after the close of speakers. After hearing from speakers, Council may 1. Approve in principle the application, 2. Refuse the application, or 3. Defer the application for further consideration. So the first application is a rezoning on Cambie Street, and the clerk will now read the application and summary of correspondence received. Please go ahead, clerk.
This is an application by Giant Union Design Architecture and Planning Limited to rezone 7843-7845 Cambie Street from RT1 two-family dwelling to CD1 Comprehensive Development District to permit the development of a 6-story residential building, a building height of 18.9 meters, equivalent of 62 feet, and a floor space ratio, FSR, of 2.75 are proposed. As of 5 p.m. today, no correspondence has been received on this application since it was referred to public hearing and prior to the close of the speakers list and receipt of public comments.
Great, thank you very much. Let's see. So if there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to Council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 4034779 hashtag. 4034779 hashtag to get on the list before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be tweeted out and available on the live stream. We have Lucia Desjardins here from the Rezoning Center to walk us through the slides. Just checking, clerk, do we have any speakers to this application?
Mr. Yes, we do have one speaker participating on the phone.
Great. Okay, so I'm going to ask the staff to go through the application for us, and please go ahead.
Thank you. You can see my presentation and hear my voice?
We can.
Great, thanks. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Lucia Desjardins, the rezoning planner for this application. This site, shown in red, is comprised of one lot zoned RT1. It is located on the west side of Cambie Street between West 62nd and 63rd Avenue. It is approximately a 5-minute walk north of the Marine Drive Canada Line station. Sites across this section of Canby Street are designated as six-story residential developments under the Canby Corridor Plan. Nearby, two of the sites have been rezoned to CD1 and are currently under construction. The adjacent property to the north, 7807 Canby, is also a rezoning application that has been approved but is not enacted yet. Across the lane to the west, sites are zoned RS1, which allow two-family residential developments, with lots closer to Canby Street eligible for rezoning to RM8 townhouses. Across Canby Street to the east are properties zoned RM9. This site is currently developed with one single-family home with a secondary suite. The house is currently occupied with two tenancy agreements beginning in February 2019. As the application is a single lot containing one single-family home, this policy does not apply. This proposal is being considered under the Canby Corridor Plan, which was adopted in 2018 following a comprehensive three-phase planning program. It includes a public benefit strategy and a public realm plan. The intent of the plan is to guide and enable change and focuses on providing a range of housing types and affordability levels, including market residential developments, such as the project before you tonight. At this location, shown as a red box on the map, residential buildings up to 6 stories in height can be considered. A density between 2.0 and 2.5 FSR is suggested for residential-only developments, and 2.5 to 3.0 FSR is suggested for mixed-use developments. This range is based on intended urban design performance. The development potential for each site might fall within, below, or above this range. This application responds to the plan by proposing to rezone to a 6-story strata residential building with an FSR of 2.75 and a height, including the amenity space, of 21.9 meters, 71.9 feet. Note that this falls above the suggested FSR range, and staff find this proposal responds appropriately to the height and density already established in the adjacent development to the north. This building has stepping back above the 4th floor and at the rear of the site to minimize visual intrusion to the properties to the west. 55% of the units in the building are proposed as family units, which exceed the 35% minimum requirement under the city's family room policy. 37 vehicle parking spaces are provided. Shared underground parking access is proposed with the property to the south, 7887 Canby, which is anticipated to be a future application. A city-hosted open house was held in September 2019 and was attended by 29 people. Responses to this application were minimal, with 3 responses collected from the public. Feedback included concerns about the pace of development in the area, the loss of mature trees on the adjacent north site, which is currently a development permit application, an increase in traffic in the area, and units being unaffordable to local income earners. This application generates approximately $2.34 million in CACs to be allocated towards the community benefits outlined in the Canby Corridor Public Benefit Strategy. Further, a DCL of approximately $819,000 would be anticipated. This includes citywide utilities DCL, which help pay for infrastructure upgrades. As part of the Restart Smart Vancouver initiative, in response to COVID-19, this project will contribute approximately 101 new on-site and off-site construction jobs during the initiative's recovery phase. In summary, this proposal meets the intent of the Canby Corridor Plan. Staff recommend the application be approved subject to conditions outlined in Appendix B. Staff and the applicant team are available to answer any questions. Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank you very much for that. Council, let's see. We're just going to ask first if the applicant team is here to speak to the application. Go ahead. You may be on mute.
Hi, I'm from GUD, John Union Design Group.
Okay.
From architecture firms here. Basically, our project on 7843, and we same time design the project on the south side as well to share the ramp together. So this is going to be 2 different owners share the common ramp on the south side of the development. It's pretty much we think this is going to be a good development and has a very close proximity to the Marine Drive and Canby shopping area, commercial area, and the SkyTrain. So it's going to be add some VU Street appeals around the Canby corridor. And we're fully working together with the client and the city staff to make this successful.
Okay, thank you very much. And sorry, what was your name again, sir?
Chinmay.
Chinmay.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks very much. And now we're on to questions from council to staff or the applicants. And please note this is the only opportunity to ask questions to the applicant. So if you have any, please say so. Now you have opportunities to ask questions of staff after we hear from the speakers. I've got Councillor Swanson. Councillor Swanson, please go ahead. Up to 5 minutes.
Yeah, I think it was over a year ago we passed a motion about examining the city's building zone and zoning codes and planning processes to make sure that housing wasn't put in places where there'd be a lot of pollution from vehicles. And Canby, of course, is a major arterial. I know a lot of people are thinking that in a few years, most vehicles will be electric, so there won't be pollution. But the newer studies are showing that there's a lot of particulate that is actually dangerous to health that comes from brakes and from tires. So I'm wondering if our staff and maybe the applicant can say, is there anything in the construction of this project that would help protect its residents from this kind of pollution?
Okay, thank you. Maybe start with staff.
Since this is more construction related, I'd like to ask the applicant maybe to weigh in.
Okay, sure. Over to the applicant.
Is the noise of the construction as a concern?
No, the concern appears to be the particulate from the traffic that is in front of this building. And so, are there any mitigating measures that you've put in place in the building to protect residents from the say diesel particulate or from brakes?
Yeah, we have we try to put some canopy and balconies facing Canby Street, and also we use some high performance glazing system to prevent that. And also we have accommodated enough setback from the Canby property line to give enough buffer and with the landscape.
Okay. Councillor Swanson?
The research shows that if you're within 150 meters of a major arterial, that you can be subject to this pollution, the bad effects of it. So like a little setback isn't probably enough. Are there any other special things that you've done to try and protect the new residents from traffic pollution?
Yeah, we try to work with landscape architect together and to make enough trees or shrubs. And also, like I mentioned, it's a high performance architectural materials, and including the glazing and some stone materials to kind of reduce and that kind of impact from the arterial noise. Because the site itself is a kind of a common, like a normal residential depth, about 120 feet. So we try to get minimum at 12 feet to 15 feet setback to get enough FSR on the buildable area. Otherwise, it's not feasible for the developer to get any buildings on, because this is a rather small site. Then most of the site has a large kind of a whole city block. This is like a duplex site. So we have to also make it financially feasible for the developers to do that. But for sure, we on the DEP stage, we have to take that consideration for sure, and to how to improve that for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Swanson. I don't see any other councillors that wish to ask questions, so I'll move to the public. And we have one caller on the line. I just pull up this list here. I think it's Marika Pyler. Marika Pyler. Clerks, is Ms. Pyler available on the phone?
Yep, we're just going to patch her through.
Great, thank you.
Ms. Filer, are you on the line?
Yes, I'm on the line.
Go ahead.
Up to
Thank
5
you.
minutes, please go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, am I heard?
Absolutely. We can hear you loud and clear.
Wonderful. Okay. So yes, I decided to call in today because I live in this area and I have lived here about 10 years, so I'm very familiar with it. And in particular, I'm familiar with the tall trees on this block, the mature trees, which I see as great value to this neighborhood. In my view, there's a reason why this street was named the Cambie Heritage Highway. There have been a lot more tall trees here previously, but they are gradually going down as a result of the rezoning, and I understand that there's a need. But I called in today to suggest that the trees on this particular block would benefit future dwellers of this area greatly because they would show them some of the history and why it was named the Cambie Heritage Highway. These trees can be seen from the SkyTrain. They're among the last. They're very beautiful. There's a large amount of wildlife that live in them, and it's also would be a good spot for people that are walking up from the Marine Drive station to try to find parks. Have those trees, like a small park there, for example, would be a perfect stop point on their way to larger parks. And once those trees are down, you can't get them back. So I would ask the city to see the value of those trees for the future people that will live here. I won't be among them because my house has been rezoned. I will be having to move, but I'm thinking of this neighborhood and what it will be like for the future dwellers. And will it be just one 6-story building after another all the way to Langara, or could we have some stop-off points, some little mini greenways leading up? Could we make this area pleasant and of value in the future by looking at the trees that are here now and finding a way to make that park? That is my suggestion.
Okay, thanks very much. Clerk, I'll just ask caller, you do have questions from Councillor Carr, but I'm just wondering if you could, you did start we could hear you very well at the beginning and you faded off a little bit, so perhaps you could, we'll try to adjust that on our end, but if you could speak directly into your phone mouthpiece, that would be great. And I'm going to, and apologies if you already are, over to Councillor Carr, who has questions for up to 5 minutes.
Yes, thanks so much, Ms. Bonner, for coming to speak to us or be on the line to speak with us tonight. I read the report, and I noticed that they say that there's only 3 trees on site, and they're recommending removing them because of the species health and location. Can you tell me, are you familiar with those trees on site? Is there something about the trees that you may concur with an arborist report that they don't appear to be healthy or not?
I'm hearing my own echo, dear. But what I would say is that there is a kind of a row of trees, most of which are on the adjoining property, not this one.
Yes, there's
but one of them at the back is on this property.
Mm-hmm.
And I was previously told that that tall tree would be saved, but the others would not. And so I'm not really sure right now what the plans are for these trees.
Right. The report says that it says that 3 trees are recommended to be removed and replaced with 9 new trees. But I will ask staff at the end, after all the public speakers have finished, in terms of the plans for those trees. And I really appreciate you raising the issue of trees and tree canopy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks very much. And that's it for questions for you. So I just really want to appreciate you calling in today and participating in this public hearing. Thanks so much. I believe we don't have anybody else on the list that signed up, but I'm going to call if there are any other speakers for this item who wish to speak to council. Please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by the code 4034779 hashtag to get on the list before the close of the speakers list. Of course, the number is tweeted out and available on the live stream if you're watching. Clerks, are there any other speakers on the line?
Mayor Stewart, we don't have anybody else on the line.
Okay, so I'm going to call 3 times for additional speakers. So if there are any other speakers who wish to speak to this item, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by code 4034779 hashtag to get on the list. And again, that number is available on the live stream or on Twitter. And clerk, I'm going to go for a second time, but just please interrupt me if somebody does call in. So anybody wants to get on the list, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by code 4034779 hashtag. And I'm going to make a final call here for speakers. 1-833-353-8610, followed by code 4034779 hashtag. So clerk, I'll just check with you. Is there any other people call in for this?
Mayor Stewart, we just want to confirm there's 1 speaker on the line. Give us a minute.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Council, just so you know, some callers are not turning down the volume of their computers, and that's why we get a bit of feedback from them. So we're working through the moderator to make sure they do that, and that will give us a more consistent volume on the speakers who are calling in. Kind of like a call-in show where they ask you to turn down your radio. Councillor Kirby-Young, did you have a...
No, I was just proactively going to ask a question of staff once we've concluded the speaker call, Mr. Mayor.
Okie doke, no problem. I'll just wait to see what the clerk... I will have... right, so we're just going to... the councillors are on the question queue. I am going to move us over to a main queue once the questions are over, but I'll just let you know when I'm going to do that. No, actually, we'll stay on this questions queue until it's moved. Clerks, any luck?
Mayor Stewart? No, there's no additional speakers. You can go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much for that. Seeing there are no additional speakers, the speakers list is now closed, and as few or no public comments were received on this item after 5 p.m. today. We're going to close the receipt of public comments and move on to hearing closing comments, asking further questions to staff and making a decision. Does the applicant team have any closing comments they'd like to make?
No, not at this moment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Staff have any closing comments?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Okay, Council, there's some questions here. Council Kirby-Yung, up to 5 minutes to staff.
Thank you. I'm looking at page 5 of the referral report and the notation around parking, and it states that the underground parking vehicle access to it is proposed to be shared with the property to the south for which a rezoning application has not yet been submitted, and if that doesn't work out, I guess that there would be a ramp incorporated on site. Can you walk me through how that would work? I'm just concerned around flow and access there and trying to visualize that. Yeah, sure. Yes, the adjacent properties can share parking access through a legal agreement and the construction of a knockout panel that connects the parkades. This has already been discussed between the owners of the sites, and we anticipate the property to the south, 7887 Cambie, will be an application in the near future. It has completed the rezoning inquiry process, but not the application process. So if for some reason the property does not materialize as an application, then this project would need to revise their drawings to accommodate a parking ramp on site. This wouldn't involve amending the CD1, as it would probably reduce the maximum density that's permitted, and can be handled at the DP stage. Okay. And in the event that a shared agreement was reached, then there would be one access? Yeah, precisely. How that would work functionally for residents of both future buildings. Is that correct? Yes. Okay. I will leave it there for now. Thanks very much.
Great, thank you. And we're on to Councillor Carr for up to 5 minutes. Councillor Carr, please go ahead when you're ready.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just following up on the speaker and the questions about the trees on site and on the adjacent properties, et cetera. And I noticed that the report does detail that, but states that the removal of the trees on site recommended by the arborists are based on species, health, and location. So I'm just wondering, is there something specific about the health and specifically even so the species that is of concern to us?
We don't have an expert arborist in the room right now, but we are recommending they explore retention of one significant tree, not necessarily all of them, which is that one is on the northwest side of the property near the property line. The rezoning for the property to the north also recommends retention of 2 trees on their property. Currently, the adjacent developer is working through development permit conditions, and coordination will be necessary to ensure as many of these trees are being retained as possible. But we would have to review the arborist report again at the DP stage to ensure that the accredited arborist provided accurate information on the species and their health.
Yeah, I'm just curious about the fact that it's a recommendation based on species. Is there something about certain species of trees that we are now concerned about? And I'm particularly thinking in light of climate change.
Councillor Carr, this is Teresa O'Donnell, Deputy Director for the department. I don't have that report at my fingertips tonight. I apologize for that. It could be that these are invasive species. I don't know, but we will absolutely investigate that more after the conclusion of the hearing tonight and make sure that we have good, precise information as we go into the DP stage.
That's great. Okay,
and you'll recall the briefing by Ms. Isaacs yesterday. That is some work that is very important to us, and you know, the protection of important tree canopy versus kind of the impact of development. It's something our department continues to study and try to mitigate.
Yes, and as long as the trees are healthy, I think that the greater desirability of mature tree canopy especially in light of climate change and warming summers is really important. Okay, and I noticed that there is a retention of trees, the trees on the city site, the city street, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Great. Okay, that's all my questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Don't have any other questions for staff that I can see here, so we'll now make our decision.
I'm happy to move the recommendations, Councillor Carr.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Carr. Okay, thank you. Now we'll move to the debate queue. If there's any debate on this, please put yourself on the list. And I don't see anybody on the list, so we can call a vote on this. So I'm calling the vote.
Point of privilege, Mr. Mayor? If you could please mark me as in favor. Thank you.
Okay, vote assist for Councillor Dejanova in favor. And okay, so that has passed with Councillor Swanson in opposition. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Council. We're moving on to the rezoning on West 41st Avenue, and I'll have the clerk read the application.
This is an application by GUD Group to rezone 187-195 West 41st Avenue from RS1, One Family Dwelling District, to CD1 Comprehensive Development District to permit the development of a 4-story residential building. A building height of 15 meters, equivalent of 50 feet, and a floor space ratio, FSR, of 1.80 are proposed. As of 5 p.m. today, no correspondence has been received on this application since it was referred to public hearing and prior to the close of the speakers list and receipt of public comments.
Thanks very much. And so just so the public know, if there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 4034779 hashtag to get on the list. And this is on the live stream, this number, and on Twitter. We have Tess Monroe from the Rezoning Center for the presentation, but clerks, I believe there are no public speakers. Nobody signed up on the speakers list for this item.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, so council, we could bypass the presentation unless somebody would like to see it.
Move to waive presentation, Councillor Carr.
Okay, thank you. Thanks very much. So we'll waive the presentation. I've heard no objections to that. Is the applicant team here to speak to the application?
Yeah, this project we have been working on with city staff, planners quite closely. So when you see this angle of perspective, so you'll see we have improved quite a bit of pedestrian kind of friendly kind of environment around 41st Avenue, around to the Oak Ridge Center. So rather to build, because this is a sloping site, the first time we has a kind of like 5 or 6 feet retaining wall around 41st. Now has all been revised and improved. So this is a much better project and a scheme that we have submitted first time. Quite closely. So we see this angle of perspective. We will see we have improved quite a bit of pedestrian.
Sorry, clerk. So I hear. Sorry, I'm going to interrupt the applicant here. We've had some kind of audio change.
So
sorry, it sounds like maybe from the applicant side of things we've. There we go. That sounds better, sir.
Is working now? Better?
It is, yes. You had some interference in the back.
Yeah, this is a sloping site. Actually, when we first submitted a scheme, we had kind of a 5 or 6 feet high returning wall, stick out from parquet around 41st. From the second scheme, and we resubmitted, and we're working with the planners So now it's much better, kind of a pedestrian-friendly kind of environment to link 41st to Oak Ridge. So I have a better kind of confidence on this project and has improved the city's streetscape and kind of neighboring kind of quality, living quality. So.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you very much. You may have questions from council. So are there any questions from council to staff or the applicants? Please put yourself on the list. I don't see anybody at the moment, so I'm going to move on unless somebody puts themselves on the list. I don't see anybody on the list, so we're now going to move to hearing from the public, and we have nobody on the list, so I am going to call for speakers. Please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 4034779 hashtag to get on the list. And that number's on your screen if that's helpful, or it should be on the screen or on the Twitter feed. Do we have anybody on the line, clerks?
Mayor, so we were just going to check. Just give us a minute. Mayor Stewart, we don't have any others on the line to speak to this item. You can go ahead. Mayor Stewart, are you on the line? I can't seem to hear your audio.
Sorry about that. I was on mute. Make my second call now. If anybody would like to speak to this item, please call 1-833-353-8610, followed by code 4034779 hashtag to get on the list. And this is my second call. And just checking with the clerks. Anybody call in?
No additional speakers, Mayor Stewart.
Okay, thanks. And my last call then, third call, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by code 4034779 hashtag to get on the list. And that number's on screen as well if you need it. Clerk? Nobody still?
No, you can go ahead and close the speakers list.
Okay, thanks. So we've had no public comments after 5 p.m. and we're going to close the receipt of comments and move to hearing, closing comments, questions, and make a decision. The applicant team have any closing comments to make on this?
No, not at this moment.
Okay, thank you. Staff have any closing comments?
No, staff don't have any comments. Thank you.
Okay, any questions from council to staff? I don't see anybody on the list, so we're going to make our decision now. Do we have a mover?
So moved, Councillor Carr.
Thank you.
Second, Councillor DeGenova.
Great, thank you very much. If there's any debate, please put yourself on the list. Sorry, I'm just moving to the main queue. I don't see anybody on the list, so I'm going to call for the vote. Vote has been called.
Point of privilege, can I get a vote assist in favor, Mr. Mayor?
Sure can. Councillor DeGenova, vote assist in favor. That has passed with Councillor Swanson in opposition. Thank you very much, Council. We're going to move on to the third item on our list, which is the rezoning on 3220 Canby Street. I'm going to turn over to the clerks. Just 1 second. Before we begin, I'd like to remind Council that we need to move the recommendation for this item together with the yellow memorandum dated June 16th entitled CD1 Rezoning 3220 Canby Street Minor Correction to Sign Bylaw Amendment. The memo is intended to provide additional information to Council, but no further action is required. And the clerk will now read the application.
This is an application by West Group Properties to rezone 3220 Cambie Street from C2 Commercial District to CD1 Comprehensive Development District to permit the development of a 6-story mixed-use building. A building height of 23.2 meters, equivalent of 76 feet, and a floor space ratio FSR of 3.75 are proposed. Since being referred to public hearing, Council has received 1 piece of correspondence in support to the application, 3 pieces of correspondence in opposition to the application, and 2 pieces of correspondence addressing other aspects of the application. This represents all correspondence received up to approximately 5 p.m. today.
Thank you very much. Just as we begin, if there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to Council, please call 1-833-353-8610, followed by code 4034779 to get on the list. And we have, again, Tess Monroe here from the Rezoning Center. And we do have speakers, so best to go through the presentation, staff. And please go ahead, Ms. Monroe.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Tess Monroe, and I'm the rezoning planner for this application. I will note a yellow memo has been prepared for this application and is included in your agenda packages. The memo is provided for information only, and no further action is required by Council. The site shown outlined in red is comprised of 1 lot zoned C2. It is located on the southeast corner of Cambie Street and West 16th Avenue and currently contains a temporary community garden. The Cambie Corridor Plan boundary is directly to the north of the site along 16th Avenue. Sites along Cambie Street south of the subject site are designated as 6-story mixed-use development under the plan. Across the lane to the east, sites are zoned RT5, which allows 2-family residential development and encourages the retention and renovation of existing character homes. This proposal is the first rezoning application under the Cambie Corridor Plan in the Cambie Village area. Significant development nearby includes a 6-story mixed-use development across Cambie to the west that was developed in 2004. The site supports a temporary community garden operating while the site is in development phase by a nonprofit organization. The temporary garden space was assembled in 2017, and community members who use the plots are notified that the garden is temporary when they sign up and have short-term use agreements. As it is a temporary use, replacement of the garden is not required. This proposal is being considered under the Cambie Corridor Plan, which was adopted in 2018 following a comprehensive 3-phase planning program. The intent of the plan is to guide and enable change and focuses on providing a range of housing types and affordability levels, including market residential developments such as the project before you tonight. At this location, shown as a red box on the map, mixed-use buildings up to 6 stories in height can be considered. A density range between 2.5 and 3 FSR is suggested, based on intended urban design performance. The development potential for each site may fall within, below, or above this range. This application responds to the plan by proposing to rezone the site from C2 to CD1 to permit the development of a 6-story mixed-use building with commercial uses at grade and a total of 48 strata residential units. 48% of the units in the building are proposed as family units, which exceeds the 35% minimum requirement under the city's family room policy. A maximum height of 13.8 meters and an FSR of 3.75 are proposed. A city-hosted open house was held in July 2019 and was attended by 29 people. Response to the application was minimal, and staff have received a total of 13 responses. Feedback on this application included comments relating to support of the appealing building design. Concerns included the potential for increased traffic congestion resulting from this development and that the density exceeded that permitted in the Cambie Corridor Plan. In response to public comments, staff reviewed the proposed height and density. Based on the prominent location of the site, unique building design, and minimal shadowing on neighboring properties, staff are generally supportive of the height and density, subject to design development conditions that include lowering the floor-to-floor heights and introduction of upper-story setbacks facing the lane. This application generates approximately $2 million in CACs to be allocated towards the community benefits outlined in the Canby Corridor Public Benefit Strategy. Further, a DCL of approximately $1.5 million would be anticipated. In summary, this proposal meets the intent of the Canby Corridor Plan. As part of the Restart Smart Vancouver initiative, in response to COVID-19, if approved, this project would contribute approximately 168 new on-site and off-site construction jobs. Staff recommend the application be approved, subject to the conditions outlined in Appendix B. Staff and the applicant team are available to answer questions. Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thanks so much for that. And so is the applicant team here to speak to the application?
Yeah.
And would you like
yes.
Sure, go ahead.
It's Ryan Tay here from West Group Properties. I'm joined with my colleague, Myra Shunny. We also have on the line our architect team, Olson Kundig, represented by John Halleck and Brian Penns. So we're here and available to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. So we'll move to the questions round, and we have a question from Councillor Kirby-Yung. And reminder to Council that this is your only chance to ask the applicant questions. So Councillor Kirby-Yung, I'll start your timer. Please go ahead up to 5 minutes.
Yeah, thank you. I have a question regarding the commercial space and what the vision is in terms of leasing that space, as well as the size of the CRUs, if you're looking to try to support smaller footprint businesses coming in, or can you speak to the configuration and the goals there?
This is Tess Monroe from the Rezoning Center. I'll let the applicant speak to this question.
Thanks, Tess. Yeah, and thank you for the question. It is a bit early as far as securing tenancies for the space. How we've designed the ground floor retail is to allow it to be flexible to offer a variety of different options and uses. I will note that the site is sloping in nature, so that set us up a little bit, so to speak, to allow for 4 CRUs. So that's what we've shown on the plan, which is a good fit, but it is flexible to allow for a variety of options.
Okay, and can you share the approximate size of those 4 CRUs if they were leased as separate units?
The corner unit is, sorry, just bear with me, it's just over 3,000 square feet, and then the 3 other to the south facing Canby are about 1,000 square feet each.
Okay. Great. And then in terms of how you see this fitting into the neighborhood, I'm curious around sort of your vision for context and in terms of this being the first project in Canby Village of this type.
Yeah, we're very excited. As Ms. Monroe mentioned, we see this as a gateway site to the Canby Corridor Plan in the most northern section. It's the first in Canby Village, so that is partly why, or part and parcel to the expression that you see us bringing in Olson Kundig from Seattle. And so we believe this is a great corner to do something a little bit different, but still meet the intent of the Canby Corridor guidelines. In terms of how we envision the retail space, we do see it as a very activated space. So as I mentioned, it is a bit early before securing tenants, but we would be doing that about a year to 2 years before completion, and we would be looking for a very activated frontage.
Okay, and one follow-up question, if I might, and I appreciate that answer. There's a note in the referral report that says private patios are located on the roof and shared amenity space of the second floor, but the other units also do have balconies for clarity. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so everybody would have outdoor space access, both private and shared.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks. That's it for questions from Council. So now we're going to hear from the public, and I believe, clerks, that we have a couple of folks. I have on the list, I have Alan Beam and Conrad Welty is, and I believe Mr. Beam is in person in the council chambers.
Mayor Stewart, that is correct. And I'm wondering if you can also invite additional speakers to call in now if they wish to speak.
I will do that. So if anyone would like to speak to this item, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610. followed by participant code 4034779 hashtag to get on the list before the close of the speakers list. And if you've missed that number, it is on the live stream, and it's also on Twitter. So are we ready to go with the first speaker, clerks?
Yes, the speaker is ready.
Great.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor and Council. And on behalf of the Riley Park South Cambie Community Steering Committee, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak to this rezoning application. We'd also like to thank the developer, West Group, for the courtesy of meeting with members of our committee in early July of last year. At that time, we viewed and discussed the initial plans for a building that West Group saw as a, quote, gateway to the Cambie corridor. Our initial comments on some aspects of the project were quite positive, such as it's a more creative design than the usual 6-story buildings going up along the corridor, especially south of King Edward. As you will see in a few moments, and we have a few pictures to show you, the glazing on this proposed on the building and addressing the avian concerns is positive, as is the passive housing route. The problem with our meetings is that preliminary drawings that are shown are not the final ones, and so we have some issues with this process. And it's not only with this developer. The question is really, at what cost to the community environment will this project be? And we now see a 6-story building with an overall height of approximately 87.5 feet. That is something like 77 feet 5 inches to the roof line and an additional 10 feet to the rooftop parapet. It's somewhat misleading to say that a rooftop patio is not an additional floor. We are really looking at a generous 7-story structure verging on 8 stories. In addition, the property's on a slope, thereby creating a heightened visual impact as you move south on Cambie. And we are well aware of the Cambie Corridor Phase 3 policy with regards to height and FSR and the wiggle room there, and I'll mention in a minute. The FSR is certainly excessive at 3.75, and this density is rather difficult to accept regardless of both the innovative design and type of construction. There are also units with 2 and 3 bedrooms, but we did not see anything where the space for children to play, except the amenity room and the outdoors part there. What will this project do for the Cambie Village? Our PSC sees this project and others being proposed within the village, and we know there will be an open house sometime in July, as the slow destruction by 1,000 cuts to the Cambie Village. Our PSC sees the problem emanating from the CCP3 policy. On more than one occasion, we've expressed our concern to Council with the wording on both height and density, as there is excessive wiggle room in this policy. Unfortunately, the public consultation process in creating the CCP3 policy could have been more extensive. We're looking at a document of near 300 pages that few have even given a cursory reading to. We'd like to quickly refer to a dozen photos which were sent in yesterday, and the first 4 pictures are not on the Cambie corridor, and to deal with these pictures, I'd like to say one other thing. The RPSC is concerned with the consistency not being part of the CCP3 vocabulary. And when you look at the first 4 pictures here, they are all in what is known as the northeast quadrant, which is just beyond Little Mountain housing site. And that is nearly built out now. You've got 4 buildings, no consistency whatsoever, and we have one of them there where you have rooftop development, that one that is being shown right now. That is co-housing, the 4th one here. If we move on to the 5th photograph, right there, we see a 7-story building on Cambie, right just to the north of the Milton Wong home, which is now a heritage site. Penny Farthing, the developer on this site here, received an additional floor because of designating the Wong residence as heritage. And this building here is closer to 8 than to 7. And when you look next door to the north, on your right side of the picture, you can see that it is a 6-story building that is under construction at the present time. Okay.
Just 30 seconds left, Speaker.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll do very quickly then. If just flash these photos through, please. So we see inconsistency on development. We see rooftop there. We see Cambie and 25th on that one. This is 41st Avenue looking east on 2 occasions. And again, inconsistency. And that's the last one, the former United Church on 41st Avenue at Elizabeth, with that rooftop there that is certainly not appealing, but you won't see much of it once the buildings to the west are constructed. And I guess, Mr. Mayor, you said I have a couple of seconds.
Well, you are just at 5 minutes now.
Okay. Then I have if I may get a closing comment in here. If
just a sentence, that would be great. Okay.
If Council has not visited the Cambie corridor in recent months, or if they ever have, it behooves you to become familiar with this area. Other than the downtown and the West End, our area is undergoing more development than any other areas within the city. And when you look on the Cambie corridor...
I'm going to have to stop you there.
That's it.
I'm going to have to stop you there, but you do have questions from Councillor Carr.
Okay.
Councillor Carr, please go ahead, up to 5 minutes.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Bume, for your persistence over many, many years in terms of coming to council to speak to these issues, and your leadership in the local residents association. My question is around. My first question is around the notion of the rooftop patios. I'm not sure I understood your objection regarding those patios.
What we found is that within the Cambie corridor policy, I forget the exact pages, it's section 5 something on that, and within there is the room to have rooftop patios or whatever, including this building here. Our concern is that when you have that, you put up probably a 42-inch glass or protective area so nobody takes the great leap forward. And at the same time, we see then there's also structures where there are facilities there other than the elevator shaft. And in this building here, it appears that the 6 stories, the 6th floor will have walk-up to their individual patios. Now, there's nothing that says, maybe through permit, that, down in the future when you go to Strata Council, let's put some covers on it or whatever. But we see that this kind of development here creates height that goes far beyond what we would call, quote, a normal 6-story building. That's the concern we have. I think if there was extensive consultation on this clause and a couple of others that I've addressed within here, then maybe we wouldn't have it that way, but I do not recall any extensive consultation on this specific item.
So do you object in general, in your organization, object in general to the rooftop patios?
When if the rooftop, Councillor Carr, if the rooftop patio was within a reasonable height, that would be fine. This building here was quoted in the ad in the newspaper and on the site. It's something in the neighborhood of 77 feet. When we look at the drawings, we add another 10 feet beyond that to get the patio area in, and also the one building that is close to the elevator shaft. And that is a concern that we have.
Okay, because it is presented to us at 76 feet. So you're adding in whatever the whatever the building is. I'll ask Seth about that. Okay. Okay. No problem. Thanks.
Right. Thank you.
Mayor Stewart, are you on the line? I think you muted.
Sorry, I did that again. Just wanted to thank you very much, sir, for coming in this evening, or for participating, and for putting so much effort in your presentation. That's it for questions for you, so thanks. And we're going to move on to our next speaker, who is, we got here. It's Conrad Welty. Now let's turn it over to you, clerks, for to set that up.
Mr. Welty, are you on the line?
Hi there. I hope you can hear me. This is Conrad Welty.
Yes, please go ahead, Mr. Welty. Up to 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. So I'm calling in to voice my support for the redevelopment application to 3220 Canby. So I actually don't live in the area any longer, but I did a few years ago. My partner and I lived there, and we greatly enjoyed it for all sorts of reasons. I know I only have 5 minutes, so I won't rant about the beauty of the area, but it's gorgeous. It's very central, so it's pretty easy to get to nearly any other part of Vancouver from there. It's close to transit, close to buses. Several SkyTrain stations are on Canby Street. It's pretty easy walking to a fair number of businesses. We lived near 17th, pretty close to Canby. So we greatly enjoyed it, and our landlady ended up taking back the unit we were renting so she could have more space, which was very understandable. But when we looked to find new housing, we were hoping to stay in the area. And I'm sure you've heard similar stories before. We looked on Craigslist, Kijiji. We even spent a whole day walking around in person, calling any number we could find outside of a building. And we had no luck. I'm sure you've heard similar complaints about all sorts of places in Vancouver. We just couldn't find anything in our price range that wasn't immediately taken. And something that had already kind of passed to my mind kind of idly really came back to the fore as I was going through this process, which is that looking down Canby Street, I was surprised to realize it looked already heavily commercial and very much set up as a main street, which makes sense. It's very, very central, lots of transit and whatnot, but that a lot of the buildings didn't have residential units on top of them. And I wondered to myself, why is it that there's a central place where there's a lack of supply for people who might want to live here in this area? So I ultimately moved to a different part of Vancouver that I still love, but I do think that it might really, really benefit such a key part of our city to have more housing stock so that people can afford to live in the area, and so that the vacancy rates aren't so low, and it's just a spot that's really going to continue to see more and more demand, I believe. I mean, VGH is there. The City Hall is on Canby Street, not too far from this area. And it feels best to me for the future to build out more housing to accommodate that. And I know that brand spanking new, beautiful condos and apartments, maybe not the exact units I would have been able to afford at the time, but it certainly would have meant that I wouldn't have been competing with some of those higher income and more established renters. And, today's new buildings are tomorrow's older buildings that are more affordable. So I do believe it's best for the future of the area if we add more housing, and it makes a lot of sense to me to add mixed-use buildings that have, the same horizontal impact for more units. It seems very sensible to me. And on top of that, I won't go at length about it due to time and my lack of expertise, but I was impressed by the green credentials the building boasts of and the developers boast of having in this building, which it's a very important cause as well, of course. So all in all, I think it's a pretty clear thing that's worthwhile, and I urge you to support this application. Thank you.
Thank you very much for calling in, and there are no questions for you, so I'll just thank you for your input this evening and your spending your time with us. I'm just going to make another call if anybody would like to call in to comment on the 3220 Canby Street rezoning. The number is 1-833-353-8610. Participant code 4034779, hashtag to get on the list. And I'll just go over to the clerk and see if there's anybody else on the line.
Mayor Stewart, we don't have additional speakers.
Okay, so I'm going to call 3 times for additional speakers. Just reminding callers, potential speakers, that the number to call is 1-833-353-8610. Participant code 4034779, hashtag to get on the list, and that number is on the live stream as well on Twitter. This will be my second call. I'm just going to go through the number again, 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 4034779, hashtag. And clerks, before I do my last call, I'll just check with you.
Confirming no additional speakers.
Thanks very much. So this is my final call. Anybody who wants to call in, 1-833-353-8610, code 4034779, hashtag. And are we good to close the list, clerks?
Yes, Mayor, so you go ahead.
Thank you very much. So there's no public comment received on this item after 5 p.m. We're going to close the receipt of public comments and move on to hearing closing comments or questions and to make a decision. Does the applicant team have any closing comments?
We do not. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Staff have any closing comments?
We do not. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I see Councillor Kirby-Young's on the list. Councillor Kirby-Young, do you have a question for staff?
No, I'm happy to move the motion and speak to it. You can do that
I
now.
do have Councillor Carr on the list. Would you?
That's fine. I can move it after Councillor Carr asks her question. I'm happy to do that.
Okay, Councillor Carr, questions,
Yes.
please go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, I do want to follow up on the issue that was raised by Mr. Bloom that has to do with the height, the calculation of the height, and whether or not protuberances from the rooftop and any kind of rooftop containment are ever calculated in terms of the height of a building.
This is Tess Monroe from the Rezoning Center. So for the height that is listed here, if you look at Appendix A, the draft bylaw, there is 2 heights listed. The height that was mentioned at 76 feet, that is the height that is to the top of roof parapet, and that is the typical height that we include, how we measure the heights we include in our bylaws. That is the amount that was used for this application because at this time the applicant is not proposing a rooftop amenity room. We allow an extra provision for the increased height that would allow for the rooftop amenity room, and that is not supposed to be a full story. That is a partial amenity room that is set back from the edges and is co-located with outdoor amenity space, and so that is the extra 10 feet or so that was mentioned, and so those 2 numbers are both in the bylaw. Similar to other CANBI applications, the number that we do put in the advertisement is the number that is up to the roof parapet, although we can explore including both numbers in future notifications.
Yeah, and clarifying the the difference, why the difference between the 2 numbers. I appreciate that. My second question has to do with the comment made by Mr. Bloom regarding the children's play area. I wonder if you could just detail for me. It seemed that there were some play areas included, but can you just make sure that everybody's clear what those play areas are?
Yes, so that is details that is usually determined through the development permit process. We have included a condition under landscape design to explore providing a larger common amenity space that could include a children's play area and urban agriculture plots, but that is something that is usually figured out through the development permit process.
And was the condition to explore larger amenity space that possibly could include children's play area and garden plots, was that in response to public comments through the process?
Both public comments and something that staff look at through the rezoning, and is a condition we typically include.
Great. Thank you very much. Those are my questions.
Thanks very much. Over to Councillor Kirby-Young.
Yep. Seeing no other councillors on the queue, I'm happy to move the motion and speak to it now.
Okay, and can you move it with the yellow amendment sheet?
With the yellow memo and amendments noted for the signed bylaw correction.
Okay, thanks very much. We have a seconder?
Second, Councillor Diagenova.
Okay, thanks. I'm just going to move us onto a queue here. Council, just 1 second. Sorry, just having a little computer struggle here. There we go. Great. Okay, so I'm just going to move you over to the queue. Councillor Kirby-Young, please go ahead, up to 5 minutes.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm pleased to see this project come forward. I think we are still having firsts on this council. This is the first one, as was referenced in the Cambie Village area specifically. Although I'm recognize that there's a lot more development further south. But I do think it's a missing housing type in this area, and I appreciate the design that's come forward. One thing that's very top of mind for me right now, and it has been reinforced by COVID, is ensuring access to outdoor space. So I'm pleased to see that there's both private balconies as well as shared outdoor space available to residents, and I think that's really important in looking for livability, and I think that everyone has that heightened health awareness now. I'm particularly interested, and I am pleased to see a combination of residential and commercial development, but it strikes me that this area has been branded by the BIA, and it is called the Cambie Village Business Association, and that's really the legacy of the area and the feel of it. So I'm very hopeful that the applicant will take some of the, I think we had a comment that came in on this note too, and some of that spirit to heart, that I think that the proponents have such an opportunity to shape the feel and keep that village spirit with the selection of how those CRUs are divided up and who they're rented to. And excuse me, there are some really unique retailers in the area like Walrus or Beercraft and others that do provide the desirability and the reason that people like the neighborhood and feel comfortable there. And I'm hopeful that we're able to retain some of that. So I'm just sharing that as an aspiration personally, and an opportunity for us all to participate in community building, because that has been a particularly big challenge for South Granville, for example, if you look at that analogy where they have lost so many of their independent retailers and had much larger CRUs. And our retail study shows that that was sort of generally deemed to be one of the larger contributing factors, and that area is struggling now from that perspective. So those are my comments, but I'm pleased to support it, and I'm looking forward to providing more housing options in the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. We've got Councillor Carr next, up to 5 minutes. Councillor Carr.
Yes, thank you. I will be supporting the application as well, and I do want to congratulate the architects for choosing to go with passive house in terms of a standard. But there are some questions that I think do need to be further pursued, not necessarily by the applicant, but I'm really thinking more about city staff in general. We did receive correspondence on this issue regarding the lack of space in the local public school, elementary school for children, and the largest wait list of any school in the whole district of Vancouver, 75 neighborhood families on a wait list for that school. And I think we really need to do some more thoughtful planning with the Vancouver School Board in terms of making sure we're meeting the needs of residents in terms of enabling their children to be registered in a school to which they can walk. And so, but that is not germane to my support for the actual application. Just a note that I think we need to be considering that in the development, overall development that we are looking at moving forward. And I'm happy to hear also about the fact that the staff are going to consider, including the two different heights in terms of in the report, so the public is well aware of them and what the difference of the heights are in terms of protuberances out of the parapets and the rooftop. So I think that the more information conveyed to the public, the better. I am not of the opinion that a rooftop patio or a rooftop, which is not planned right now, but a rooftop patio or amenities on the roof or another story or floor. But I think that does probably warrant some extra continued explanation and clarification on projects as we move forward in presenting them to the public. So again, in support of it, and happy to see the development within the village.
Thank you very much. I don't see any other councillors on the list to make statements, so we can call a vote on this item. So the vote is called.
Point of privilege, Ms.
Yes, go. Yes, Councillor Dejanova.
I'm so sorry, but I'll need another vote assist in favor, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dejanova in favor. And thank you, Council. That is passed with Councillor Swanson in opposition. Okay, Council.
Point of privilege.
Yes, go ahead, Councillor Fry.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Out of an abundance of caution, I'm going to have to recuse myself from this next item. I have an immediate family member working for the proponent.
Okay, thanks for bringing that up. And Council, I'm suggesting we've been going at this now for if we take a 5-minute break and then just get the next presentation set up. So maybe 10 minutes. What do you think? 5 or 10 minutes? Open us.
Move 10-minute recess. Is Councilor
Okay.
DeGenova?
Great, thanks. So we'll let's take a break until 7:30, and we'll come back for the final item on the agenda. Thanks very much, Council. So we'll see you at 7:30. 7:30. Just check with the clerks to see if everything's in order.
Mayor Stewart, we're just going to make sure that we have enough council on the line.
Okay. I think I see.
Yeah, you're ready to go.
I think I see everybody. Yeah, everybody's waving, so that's good.
Well, except me. It's Councilor DeGenova, but I'm signing on right now.
Okay.
Thanks.
But you can hear everything, Councilor DeGenova, so I think we can proceed.
I can hear everything. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks. Clerks, we can proceed then?
Yes, over to you, Mayor Stewart.
Thanks very much. We're looking at this next item, which is the rezoning at 445 Kingsway and St. George Street. And I just want to remind Council that we'll need to move the recommendation for item 4 together with the 2 yellow memorandums, both dated June 23rd, 2020. Both have been circulated to Council, the first at noon and the second at 3:45 respectively. Both were posted on the city's website shortly thereafter for public review. The first memorandum is entitled CD1 Rezoning 445 Kingsway and 2935 St. George Street, Rescission of the Previous Zoning Approval. Second memorandum entitled CD1 Rezoning 445 Kingsway and 2935 St. George Street, Signal Upgrades. Both memorandums require action by Council. We'll have clerk read the application now and summary of correspondence received. Please, over to you, clerks.
This is an application by Acton Austri Architects Incorporated to rezone 445 Kingsway and 2935 St. George Street from C2 Commercial District to CD1 Comprehensive Development District to permit the development of a 14-story mixed-use building, a building height of 47.65 meters, equivalent of 156.4 feet, and a floor space ratio, FSR, of 7.22 are proposed. Since being referred to the public hearing, Council has received 29 pieces of correspondence in support to the application and 11 pieces of correspondence in opposition to the application. This represents all correspondence received up to approximately 5 p.m. today.
Thank you very much for that. Let's see now. So first of all, if there's any speakers who wish to speak to this item, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, 1-833-353-8610, followed by the participant code 4034779 hashtag, and that'll get you on the list. And the numbers on the live stream and will be tweeted out. We have Derek Robinson here from the Rezoning Center, who will go through 16 slides, and then we'll hear from the applicant and questions from staff and public speakers. So over to Mr. Robinson.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Derek Robinson, Rezoning Planner for this agenda item. And I'll just confirm that you're seeing the visuals.
Yes, we are.
Great, thanks. So I'd like to begin by bringing your attention to the 2 yellow memos circulated earlier today. The first memo proposes an additional recommendation be added to the staff recommendations in the referral report in order to eliminate the potential of multiple rezoning approvals in principle for this site. The additional recommendation would immediately rescind the previous approval in principle approved by Council on July 12, 2016. The second yellow memo recommends additional conditions of approval which were erroneously omitted from the staff report at the time of referral related to securing funding by the developer for signal upgrades on Kingsway. The applicant is aware of these additional conditions as they were both previously discussed during the application process. As mentioned, action is required by Council on both of the memos to include these recommendations in a motion, should that be the wish of Council following this public hearing. The subject site is located in the Mount Pleasant neighborhood and consists of 3 lots on the north side of Kingsway between Fraser Street and East 12th Avenue, shown on this slide in red. The current zoning is C2 commercial, which allows for mixed-use strata condo buildings up to 4 stories in height. Properties to the west and south across Kingsway are also zoned C2. Lots to the north are zoned RT5, which permits low-density duplex buildings up to 35 feet in height. The subject site, again outlined in red, is an irregularly shaped lot located on the northeast corner of Kingsway and St. George Street. with a site area of just over 1 acre. The site is currently used as a vehicle sales lot. Mount St. Joseph Hospital is located across Kingsway, along with a 4-story mixed-use condo building. Robson Park is located to the east, across St. George Street. The property immediately north is a city-owned site occupied by the Keevan Boys and Girls Club. Several nearby developments have been recently constructed or are proposed for rezoning in this area of Kingsway. A number of higher developments exist between Broadway and 12th Avenue, including buildings from 12 stories up to 21 stories. Recent rezoning proposals, shown here in yellow, include a 6-story rental building at 610 Kingsway, a 12-story social housing building at 1001 Kingsway, and another 14-story moderate-income pilot building at 1111 Kingsway. These applications are anticipated to come forward to Council for referral to public hearing in the coming months. Nearby amenities within a 10-minute walk include Robson Park, the Mount Pleasant Family Center, the Keevan Club, Florence Nightingale Elementary, shops and services along Kingsway, a number of childcare locations, shown here with blue circles, and the Mount Pleasant Community Center, shown here in black. The 99 B-Line bus and a future SkyTrain station are within approximately 600 meters at Main and Broadway. After extensive public consultation, Council approved the Housing Vancouver strategy in November 2017. The strategy seeks to develop 20,000 new secured rental units, of which 4,000 are to be below market, targeted for moderate incomes. In 2017, Council also approved the Moderate Income Rental Housing Pilot Program, referred to as the MERP program. The applicant is proposing to rezone under this program, the intent of which is to encourage new rental units secured at rents affordable to moderate income households. Applications under this policy must secure a minimum of 20% of the proposed residential floor area for moderate income units. Under this program, up to 20 proposals are being considered, selected based on a number of criteria, including affordability, number of new rental units created, impact on existing renters, proximity to transit, and neighborhood fit. The program allows for consideration of additional height and density of up to 14 stories for C2 sites located at arterial intersections. Staff note that this site is also located in the Mount Pleasant Plan area, as well as the Broadway Interim Rezoning Policy area. This application meets the criteria of Policy 1 within the Broadway Interim Rezoning Policy and is eligible to proceed through the rezoning process prior to completion of the plan. As mentioned, in 2016, Council approved at public hearing a CD1 rezoning for this same site under the Rental 100 program to permit a 6-story mixed-use secured rental project. That previous proposal is outlined here on this slide. It included 109 rental units, a car dealership at grade, an FSR of 3.69, and a height of 75.5 feet, generally as shown in this graphic. Underground parking access was proposed off of St. George Street, located near the Keevan Boys and Girls Club and the Mount Pleasant Family Center. The current application under consideration tonight, outlined on this slide, proposes 2 14-story mid-rise towers atop a 5-story podium, including 215 secured rental units, of which approximately 44 are intended to serve moderate-income households with vacancy-controlled rents. 10% 3-bedroom units are now included, noting the previous proposal did not include any 3-bedroom units. Staff also note at this time, the applicant is not proposing any inboard or board-light third bedrooms in this project. The previously approved car dealership at grade is now replaced by retail CRUs intended to better serve local neighborhood needs and further activate the pedestrian experience along Kingsway. In addition to parking for the on-site uses, the applicant is proposing to construct 2 further underground levels to be used for the storage of off-site vehicles. This is to serve a nearby car dealership under the same ownership, an arrangement that came about as a result of the removal of the car dealership at this location. Staff note that this additional storage area counts toward FSR and is therefore subject to DCL charges. The recommended FSR is 7.22. However, only 4.78 is permitted above grade for residential, retail, and office uses. The remaining 2.44 FSR is located below grade to accommodate the storage of off-site vehicles. Along with this change, underground parking is now proposed to be accessed from Kingsway via a new fully signalized intersection which aligns with the existing access to Mount St. Joseph Hospital. This arrangement provides an opportunity to close this block of St. George Street between Kingsway and East 13th Avenue to vehicles in order to implement portions of the St. George Rainway, which is a neighborhood improvement outlined in the Mount Pleasant Public Realm Plan. This will take the form of a green space expansion that will include new bicycle lanes, stormwater infrastructure, public gathering space, and potential for public art, all within the road right-of-way, and funded by the developer as a condition of approval of this rezoning. Furthermore, in line with the city's focus on economic recovery, it is estimated that on average, based on 2018 CMHC data, this project would create approximately 450 to 500 on-site construction jobs and approximately 250 off-site construction-related jobs over the duration of the construction period, according to the Canadian Home Builders Association of BC online data and construction jobs and housing starts. This slide outlines the vacancy-controlled rents for the approximately 44 moderate-income units proposed, at rates shown here between $950 and $2,000 per month. The rental rates proposed would be affordable to a number of households with occupations such as a graphic arts technician in a studio or a transit driver and admin assistant in a two-bedroom unit. Changes to the DCL bylaw were approved by Council in November of last year, allowing projects that are providing a minimum 20% moderate income floor area to qualify for a DCL waiver while setting rents for the market portion of the project according to market conditions. As such, the rental rates for the market units are not known. Average rents for newer buildings on the east side are shown here in blue for comparison. The applicant has requested and qualifies for a waiver of DCLs for the residential portion of the project, with an estimated value just under $5 million. The applicant will owe DCLs on the non-residential floor area, including the proposed underground vehicle storage, worth a total estimate of $3.6 million in DCLs payable to the city. As part of the MERP program, each applicant is required to include a financial statement for city review to assess the value of the project and determine if additional land lift has been created through the pilot zoning incentives. This information will help inform staff's report back on the pilot program later this year. Staff and Real Estate Services have conducted a financial review and determined the value of the additional density and incentives recommended here is offset by the cost of securing the moderate income units, along with the St. George Rainway upgrades, and no additional land lift is being generated. Staff recognize that while not all units proposed in this project will be affordable to all Vancouver residents, the DCL waiver does help to enable development of much-needed new secured rental housing along a continuum outlined in the Housing Vancouver strategy, while also in this case providing the city with the opportunity to test delivery of secured, vacancy-controlled, below-market rental units provided through a private for-profit development. Furthermore, as shown on this slide, both the moderate income and market rental rates will ultimately be well below the monthly cost of ownership. Based on CMHC data, ownership of a medium-priced unit on the east side of Vancouver ranges from over $2,400 monthly for a studio up to nearly $6,000 for a three-bedroom. If approved, all units would be secured through a housing agreement, both prohibiting the stratification of units while also limiting the rates at which moderate income rents may be increased, even on a change in tenant. 2 open houses have been held with the public as part of this rezoning application. A pre-application open house was held in May 2019, followed by a city-hosted open house in September 2019. The city-led open house was attended by approximately 30 people. Feedback received throughout the process was generally positive, with support for new rental housing, including moderate income units, and for the proposed public realm upgrades. Staff heard concern from some residents around the loss of private views, neighborhood transportation issues, and potential shadow impact resulting from the proposed height. This slide shows conceptually some of the proposed transportation-related changes that would result from this rezoning, should it be approved. It's important to note that the Rainway improvements have yet to be developed, and the public will have an opportunity to participate in the design process, which would be led by the engineering department. Appendix B of the staff report outlines some of the changes that can be expected. These include new cycle paths with improved connections across Kingsway, a new public gathering space with the potential to include public art, creek commemoration, and performance space, as well as new green space with a focus on stormwater infrastructure, all within the St. George Street right-of-way. This work is implementing a key community-driven objective identified in the Mount Pleasant Public Realm Plan, as well as contributing to goals found in Vancouver's new Rain City strategy, approved by Council last November. As indicated on this slide, the existing pedestrian-activated light at Kingsway and St. George will remain to ensure safe pedestrian crossing and will be upgraded to improve north-south cycle connections to the 14th Avenue and Prince Edward bikeways. The retention of this light and the need for improved bicycle connections were both raised by the public through the rezoning process. Another point staff heard from the public was the concern of potential shortcutting, increased traffic, and or parking spill over onto local side streets. Staff anticipate this impact will be minimal, given that St. George is to be closed to vehicles and given that all parking and loading access is to be off of Kingsway, utilizing a new fully signalized intersection aligned with the existing hospital entrance, as indicated in this graphic. Improvements along the Kingsway frontage will include design development to the building to enhance the public realm through glazing, materiality, and detailing along the building interface and maximizing active uses at grade. A widened sidewalk and a stormwater tree trench will also be installed on Kingsway. With regards to potential shadow impacts from this project, staff prioritized solar access onto public spaces rather than private properties, and as such, worked with the applicant team extensively throughout the process to minimize potential shadow impact on Robson Park. The current proposal reduces the overall shadow impact on the park as compared to the 2016 approval in principle, achieved by lowering the podium height and by stepping down the massing along St. George Street, and instead locating the majority of the massing to the western side of the site. In conclusion, staff support this application subject to conditions in Appendix B, as it is consistent with the moderate income rental housing pilot program and would contribute a total of approximately 215 units of new rental housing towards achieving the city's housing goals as identified in the Housing Vancouver strategy, as well as contributing to implementation of the Mount Pleasant Public Realm Plan and the Rain City strategy. Lastly, again, I'll just mention the 2 yellow memos for this item circulated earlier today, and just reiterate that council action is required on both memos to include the additional recommendations in a motion, should that be the wish of council following this public hearing. Thank you.
Mayor Stewart, are you on the line?
There we go. Sorry, just too many things open on my screen. Thank you very much for that, staff. Now, is the applicant team here to speak to the application?
Yes, Mayor Stewart.
Thank you. Did you have a presentation, or you just want to answer questions if asked?
I have a brief presentation.
Okay. Did you need it? You need help with that in terms of loading it up?
I just need to know how to load it up correctly or share it.
Okay. Perhaps the clerks can help with that.
Yes, Mr. We're just getting that set up.
Do I just go to share content?
Yes, go ahead.
Do I just click on share content or share my meeting window?
Staff can do that for you, actually. It would be easier.
All right.
There we go.
Can you see that now?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Mayor Stewart and Council. My name is Mark Austrie. I'm with Acton Austrie Architects, and our practice is located in Mount Pleasant. Also with us virtually is Kevin Welsh from Integral, our green building and sustainable community consultant, Jennifer Stamp from Groundswell Landscape Architects, Floris Van Wilderen from Bunton Associates, our transportation planning engineers, and Azim Ahmed from the developer. We have a brief presentation, about 6.5 minutes long, on the key urban design principles that have influenced this rezoning application and how the massing and form of development have been shaped to fit appropriately in this location. But first, just a bit of background on the process. I'm trying to, can you go to the next slide, please? Thank you. The developer is a family-owned business who have been in Mount Pleasant for 30 years. They are long-standing members of the community and plan to stay connected to this project and the neighborhood for the long term. Next, please. In 2015, a rezoning application was submitted for a Rental 100 project combined with an auto dealership and service center. And in 2016, the application received approval at public hearing. Next, please. However, with rapidly escalating construction costs, the project became unviable with the amount of density that could be achieved within the 6-story height limit for Rental 100 projects in C2 zones and could not proceed. Next, please. In late 2017, the Moderate Income Rental Housing Pilot Program, or MERP, was launched, permitting heights in C2 zones up to 14 stories, and with it, greater housing density and scales of economy. In early 2018, an application was submitted that was subsequently selected by the city to submit a rezoning inquiry as one of the top 20 projects that met or exceeded the key criteria of the MERP program, which included the depth and breadth of affordability being provided, the inclusion of family housing, and the location. Next, please. The site is a great location for density along the Kingsway arterial corridor and is within a 5 to 10 minute walking distance of numerous services and amenities already described by our rezoning planner, including the future rapid transit station at Broadway and Main. Next, please. The adjacent context is varied, with the primary street frontage along the busy arterial of Kingsway and the secondary street frontage along St. George Street opposite Robson Park. Next, please. The neighbor on St. George Street is the Kevin Boys and Girls Club with a rear paved parking lot adjacent to the site. Next, please. The neighbor on Kingsway is a car dealership and potential future development site with more paved parking area adjacent to the site. Next, please. And there are 3 potential future development sites along Kingsway to the north. Next, please. I just briefly want to go back to the 2016 Rental 100 application to mention 3 significant changes that make meaningful contributions to the surrounding neighborhood. Next, please. The first is removal of the car dealership and service center. Next, please. Which will significantly reduce the amount of vehicle traffic and permit smaller, pedestrian-oriented, neighborhood-serving retail shops along Kingsway, as well as ground-oriented townhomes for families along St. George Street across from the park. Next, please. The second is removal of the vehicle access off of St. George Street. Next, please. And relocation to a single access point off of Kingsway. Next. This allows closure of St. George Street and eliminates vehicle traffic to the park. Next, please. Which permits the development of the green infrastructure and the St. George Rainway. Next. As well as a safe pedestrian crossing from the Kevin Boys and Girls Clubs to the park. It may also permit the potential for expansion of the park in the future. Next, please. The third was reconfiguration of the building along St. George Street to retain a mature cedar tree, creating a generous landscape buffer adjacent to the Rainway between the building and the park. Next. These next ones will be kind of rapid fire. The massing consists of, next please, 2-story commercial retail base along Kingsway that wraps around to St. George Street. Next, please. Where it transitions to ground-oriented townhomes for families across from the park. Next, please. Setback above the commercial base is a 3-story residential podium. And next, please. With 2 mid-rises fronting Kingsway, all within the 14-story MERP policy height limit. Next. Thanks. You can go to the next one too, please. The northern mid-rise, next, is oriented parallel to Kingsway to establish an upper street wall along the Kingsway corridor and is set back from the adjacent property to provide a transition down to future development. Next, please. The southern mid-rise is oriented perpendicular to Kingsway to reduce shadowing of the park and to create variation in the massing, as well as to provide a large setback and transition down to the park. Next, please. The podium along St. George Street is also stepped down to provide a gentle transition to the Kevin Boys and Girls Club. Next, please. Both mid-rise forms are set back from the neighboring properties to the north with landscape buffers to enhance livability for the rental units through provision of common outdoor amenity space. Next, please. The outdoor amenity space is vast and inclusive with, next please, 5 large amenity areas on 3 different roof levels, which include children's play areas, urban agriculture, intensive planting, shade trees, amenity gardens, lounge areas, and outdoor barbecue, adjacent to multiple indoor amenity rooms for residents and families with children. Next, please. Virtually all of the roof area is intended to be accessible to residents. Next. In closing, this rezoning has in large part been an exercise in optimizing moderate income rental housing within the MERP incentives and guidelines while minimizing shadow in the park. The form of development has been shaped by the surrounding context and in particular Robson Park. The base podium heights and setbacks, step-down transitions, as well as location and orientation of the mid-rises all contribute to minimizing shadow in the park. Shadow studies in Vancouver are typically required to be measured at 10 a.m., noon, and 2 p.m. on the spring and autumn equinoxes. Due to the proximity of this site to Robson Park, we studied shadows as late as 4 p.m. on the equinoxes. And looking at this slide for comparison, this study also shows the approximate extent of the 4 p.m. shadow from a building under the existing C2 zoning, that's the blue dashed line, as well as the 4 p.m. shadow from the previous Rental 100 application, that's the purple dashed line. With particular reference to the park, you can see how the proposed form of development performs much better than the Rental 100 application and very close to the performance of a building under the existing C2 zoning, where the incremental additional shadow, that is beyond the Rental 100 application, is outside of the park. Lastly, we'd like to thank staff for their thorough analysis of the rezoning application. We'd also like to give particular thanks to Derek Robinson and Grace Jiang of the Planning Department, who both provided guidance through the rezoning process with a high level of professionalism. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Now I'm going to move to questions from Council. Councillor Swanson, I have you on the queue for up to 5 minutes. And that's this is your only chance to ask questions to the applicant. Councillor Swanson, might have you on mute. Councillor Swanson.
Can you hear me now?
I can. I'll start your timer whenever you're ready.
Okay. So I think I have 3 questions here. The amenities in the building, will everyone have access to them?
Yes, they will be fully accessible to everyone living in the building.
Is there going to be a separate entrance for the people in the cheaper units?
No, they're shared. There are 2 access entrance points, one on Kingsway and one off of St. George, and there's no distinction between MERP units or the Rental 100 units.
Okay, and I'm just wondering, since Kingsway is an arterial with lots of traffic on it, are there any things that you've done to mitigate the impact of pollution from the traffic, including particulates from brakes and tires, which studies are showing have bad health impacts?
I would say the specific things that have been done to address pollution, automobile pollution, and noise would be sort of the setbacks that we've created, the access to outdoor spaces that are not facing a Kingsway and predominantly facing on the opposite direction. We also have, I mean, we haven't got into the details yet of the glazing systems, but they'll be very high performance glazing systems. And I mentioned, we've got a number of setbacks from the face of the street that should assist it with diminishing some of the pollution particulate.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Swanson. Councillor Boyle, up to 5 minutes.
Thanks. I just have what I think is a pretty quick question for the architect team, which is in the images. It looks like along Kingsway, the commercial stretch is a pretty sort of long, continuous stretch along the streetway, and I'm wondering what is envisioned in the project that kind of enlivens that stretch of the sidewalk or visually breaks up that very long stretch with smaller storefronts, or what that might look and feel like for those walking along, as Councillor Swanson said, a pretty busy street.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Boyle. I guess I'll start by saying that we haven't designed that part of the building yet. There's still a great deal of design to occur, including design development to the commercial at grade. So we will develop that design appropriately to meet the demands of smaller retail units. And obviously that will come with discussions with potential tenants who would want to be going into those commercial units. But yes, it won't be just one smooth, long piece of glass or glazing units. It will be broken up with entrances and variation and distinction for the multiple units that will be in there.
Okay, great. I think that makes sense, and I appreciate the work on it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Weave, up to 5 minutes.
Yeah, thanks a lot for the presentation. The corner of St. George and Kingsway, it talks in the presentation and in the application a lot about kind of a plaza feel and an opportunity to create a public realm comparable to the Mount Pleasant plan and kind of those design guidelines. So what are you envisioning on that corner, what the public realm experience could be like for the public?
That is something that we're going to work out with our landscape architects and with the city. And as was mentioned in the staff presentation, there will be public input into that process. So that process hasn't started. And I think I'm not exactly sure when that process will start, but presumably after the successful.
Okay, and I guess a question to staff. In the application, it shows the comparable of the typical zoning for the area and the new property. I'm wondering why we didn't do comparisons to the approved Rental 100 project.
You have it.
Yeah, thanks for the question. This is Derek Robinson, rezoning planner. Those were also included in the shadow studies, if you're talking about the shadow impact specifically. The Rental 100 comparison.
They showed a few of kind of the levels and height and density in portions of the application, yet it talked about the typical zoning for that C2 and not the pre-approved. So I'm just wondering, as a comparable, it would have been nice kind of through the application to look at kind of what was typical for that zoning, what had been approved in this new project. I thought the applicant did a good job explaining some of the differences, but I'm wondering why that wasn't included in the presentation.
Yeah, good comment, good question. Certainly duly noted. Typically, staff would compare a CD1 rezoning in this case versus the base zoning. So that is typical of how we would compare, and so that is how you're seeing it presented in the report.
Okay, thanks. That's all the questions.
Thank you. I don't see any other councillors on the list, so we're going to now hear from the public. So if there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 4034779, hashtag to get on the list. And the phone number will be tweeted out and made available on live stream. I know, Clerk, we have a few speakers here, and I've got Neil Wiles first on my list. Is Mr. Wiles here to speak?
Yeah, the speaker is ready to go on the line.
Great. Okay. So, Mr. Wiles, whenever you're ready.
Brief in my comments. I am
You're a little faint.
supportive. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're quite faint, Mr. Wiles. So we'll just have to wait for the clerk to turn up your volume.
Can you hear me?
Yep, that's getting better. Thank you.
Okay. I am supportive of this development. Looking forward to seeing a considerable amount of extra rental units in the district. In listening to the presentations, I'm also supportive of the smaller footprint commercial units that will be going in there rather than one large tenant. I think that those would be more reflective of what's going on in our Mount Pleasant area right now. And it's that's it. That's all I've got to say. I'm very supportive of this. Looking forward to the extra rental and looking forward to the extra commercial.
That's great. Okay, thank you very much. And I don't see any questions for you in the queue, sir. So we'll move on to our next speaker. We have Azar Chima.
Hello.
Hi, Mr.
Hello?
Chima. Hi there. Can you hear us?
Yeah, perfect.
Great. Okay, go ahead. Up to 5 minutes, please.
So I just want to say good evening to you, Mr. Mayor, and also to the council and everyone on the team there at the City Hall. My name is Isar Chima, and my family has been a member of the Mount Pleasant community for about 20 years now, and we own and operate the Best Western there in the Mount Pleasant area. So we've been there since 2000, and we've seen the area grow with the new housing, the new businesses, and it's an amazing area to be a part of, whether you're going to be living there, you're going to be working there, or you're just going to go there for a nice meal. Let's say, for example, at Purdue, right? I'm pretty thrilled to see this project, to be honest. There's a need for that moderate kind of affordable housing, and it's very crucial to the business owners in this area. Part of the Mount Pleasant BIA, and I can see how these new tenants, the new people who would be living here, would really benefit the community. And I really do appreciate the fact that they are securing over 40 units for that lower income, people from $30,000 to $80,000 earnings. And I think that's going to be beneficial. Overall, I'm really in favor of this project, and I really hope that this application gets approved. That's all.
Thank you so much. I don't see any questions for you, but really appreciate you spending your time with us this evening and sharing your views on this project. Council, so sorry, I'm just looking at my list here. We have Hugh Dollaway signed up to speak. Clerks, do we have Mr. Dollaway on the line?
I believe the speaker just joined us. Mr. Dollaway, are you on the line? No, Mr. Mayor, he's not on the line.
Okay, thanks. And we'll make a call at the end if Mr. Dollaway does make it on the line. So we'll move on to Marissa Chan Kent. Do we have Marissa Chan Kent on the line?
Hi, yes, you do.
Oh, perfect. Thanks very much. We'll just make sure your volume's up a little bit, and whenever you're ready to go, up to 5 minutes.
Sounds good. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Marissa Chan Kent.
I'm just gonna pause you there. You're still a little faint. If I could get the clerks to turn up your volume a bit.
Maybe I'll get closer to my phone. How about that?
That is a lot better. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Better? Okay.
Yes.
Well, good evening. My name is Marissa Chan Kent, and I'm speaking in support of this rental housing proposal. I live very close to the site and have attended a few of the open houses the city held for this project. And generally, I think this proposal will be a really great addition to the community and will fit into the area quite well. Our neighborhood already offers a diverse mix of older single-family homes, older and new condominiums, as well as rental. The eclectic population is a part of what makes our neighborhood really interesting, desirable, and an area I definitely don't want to leave anytime soon. So I welcome this proposal and its future residents to our neighborhood. The main reason I've decided to call in and speak to you this evening, however, focuses around the fact that this project will not only bring 214 new secured rental homes to our city's overall supply, which is a desperate need, but with a commitment to deliver 20% of those homes to those earning moderate incomes who support our neighborhood economy. As a long-term renter myself, I can say firsthand experience, our city is in desperate need of this new rental housing, with an even greater need for secured homes at affordable or attainable monthly rents. So this is a very laudable project in that sense. In order to achieve this, the city needs to incentivize the landowner through additional height and density. We all know there will be impacts to this neighborhood. We're well aware of that with construction, potentially longer shadows in certain areas, but in my opinion, the benefits far outweigh the potential impacts. So I really commend this council for taking a bold approach and policy in order to make real progress on affordability. We surely need that leadership at this time. Lastly, I'd just really like to share my appreciation for the city for adapting so well to this new virtual public hearing platform. I think this new approach will allow a lot more people to participate in the public hearing, especially young people like myself who are not in Vancouver and couldn't have showed up if I wanted to, or young families who can't always attend in the hearing in person themselves. So thank you for this time and this evening. I appreciate you taking the time to hear my comments.
Thank you so much. You do have a question from Councillor Hardwick. Please go ahead,
Yep.
Councillor Hardwick.
Hello, Ms. Chan Kent. Just in transparency, do you work in the property development industry?
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem.
Mr. Mayor, point of privilege.
Go ahead, Councillor Dejanova.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to get myself on the queue. I've tried twice now, but my
Okay, I
phone
can
won't
put-
load. Thank you.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
I do have a question as well. I just wanted to ask the speaker if the speaker, and of course, I understand the speaker is under no obligation to answer my question, but I was wondering if the speaker could just clarify, as per the last question, if they're speaking on behalf of their own behalf tonight, which is what I understood from the list here.
Absolutely, I'm speaking on my own behalf. I've lived in this neighborhood for the past 3 years, and I have always been a strong proponent of seeing sustainable and positive development in the area. So absolutely, I'm speaking on my own behalf.
Thank you, Ms. Chan Kent. It's nice to see that people who live in Vancouver and are able to work in Vancouver as well. So thank you very much for answering that question for me.
Of course,
Thanks
thank
so
you
much.
for the question.
Thanks for calling in this evening. That is the last. I don't see anybody else on the list for you, so that's fine. Thank you very much for calling in and participating. Let's see. Our next speaker is Mira Orrick.
Hello.
And hi, Ms. Orrick. Hi there.
Thank you.
Thanks for calling in tonight. You have up to 5 minutes, please, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Good evening to Mayor and Council. My name is Mira Orrick. I'm a Mount Pleasant resident, a parent with childcare very close to the proposed development, and a regular of both Robson Park and St. George Street by foot and bike and car. I'm calling tonight to express my support for this project at 445 Kingsway. I'll say that in general, I find it pretty easy to support MERP projects, given that they offer much needed affordable housing to our city, and in this case, 44 units of moderate income housing, which is great, in exchange for, of course, what's currently a property that sits largely dark and underutilized. I think the project will add real value to the neighborhood and community, and for a number of reasons. In addition to affordable housing, of course, it's in close proximity to transit, across the street from a great park, a community garden, and a number of family resources, and 2 blocks from a large public elementary school. It's exactly where affordable rental housing should be situated. Tonight, however, I want to focus on one aspect that I think may get overlooked to those who aren't as familiar with the street as people who spend time on it. I run up St. George in the mornings and walk my dog there in the evenings, and I often wonder which side of St. George and Kingsway feels safer in the dark. Neither are great options. A dark park with a big hedge on one side and a dark street with few lights and no eyes on the other. We often overlook the experience of people commuting, exercising, or just out for a walk in the dark, when thinking about redevelopment, and as a result, don't create streetscapes that add to the feeling of safety in our communities. This project would change that. It would add eyes and light on the street, more people to the area, and life to an otherwise empty feeling parking lot. I understand the revised proposal for this property doesn't shadow Robson Park, which is great, or provide car access on St. George. That's a huge improvement given how many families frequent that particular block. This project would be of great value to the neighborhood, and I strongly hope Council and Mayor consider supporting it. Thanks for your time tonight.
Thank you so much for your comments. I don't see anybody on the queue to ask questions, so I'm going to move on to the next speaker. I have Evan Davies. Clerk, sir, is Mr. Davies on the phone?
Mayor Stewart, we don't have that speaker on the line.
Okay, thank you. And I'll just make some calls at the end, just for just a general call for speakers. So perhaps Mr. Davies, he's missed his queue. He can come in then. Go to our seventh speaker, which is Leslie Bolt.
Hi, can you hear me?
Absolutely can. Thanks very much for calling in this evening, and you've got 5 minutes whenever you're ready to go.
Great, thanks very much. Good evening to Mayor and Council. My name is Leslie Bolt. I'm a local Vancouver renter, and I'm also a business owner, and I'm calling to share my support for this rental project. Like many of the other folks who've spoken already, I really support the 44 units of rental housing for moderate income folks. I think the moderate income rental housing pilot project is extremely important for our city in terms of delivering on rental housing for what we call the missing middle. As you know, this housing addresses a critical gap in our housing market that will help to support people in that 20 to 40-year-old range who are looking to establish themselves in the city for the long term and really struggle to find the housing that they can afford. It's no secret that Vancouver's cost of living is one of the highest in Canada. People looking to live in rental are often also dealing with other pressures like competitive job market, high student debt, high cost of childcare, and right now dealing with a lot of the pressures around COVID and either temporary or permanent job loss. And this is the same demographic of people who are playing such an important role in how the city functions. There are teachers, our business professionals, emergency workers, chefs, and hospitality staff. And, we've got to reduce pressures on this demographic. On a personal level, 2 years ago, I was evicted from my home of 13 years here in Vancouver, and I moved into a much smaller apartment that I had to pay $500 a month more for. But, I consider myself one of the lucky ones. I had an income that made that possible for me to make that transition. But a lot of people in this city don't. And projects like the one at 445 Kingsway offer more housing choices and more rental options for our community. This purpose-built, secured long-term rental is a really important addition to the housing supply. And I think that council approving this project is a huge step in the right direction in making a real dent in providing more rental options, like I said, for the missing middle. I'm pleased to see this project come forward for your consideration, and I hope you'll support it. Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much for calling in and participating, and I don't see anybody on the queue for questions, so thanks very much for your time and your comments. Next, we're on to Jennifer Bradshaw.
Good evening.
Hello.
Good evening.
We can hear you, and whenever you're ready, up to 5 minutes, Ms. Bradshaw.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for having me, Mayor and Council. I'm Jennifer Bradshaw. I live in the River District. I live in a rental building quite similar to this one, except that it's not a MERP program. It is located on a trail. So I do wish that we have the MERP program extended beyond just on arterials, but also in RS1 districts and in residential areas that are currently reserved for single detached homes and duplexes. I think that would help greatly in having more homes like this that are protected from particulate matter and the pollution from cars. I think that Councillor Swanson brought up a good point that is important to have housing for renters like me and her and everybody that can't afford to buy, for us to live off of arterials as well. So while I do absolutely fully support this project, I do hope that the MERP program is extended. I'm really glad that we are moving forward with continued hearings and rezonings for MERP projects, because it really is the realistic and fastest option for the city to help create these moderate income and low income units. We're basically trading height and density in exchange for non-market housing, which is the city using its current tools and not just hoping for money to fall out of the provincial and federal skies to create housing for lower income people. My sister is fully in this range of that would qualify for a MERP unit, and I think that this kind of project should be all over Vancouver. I think that it could also further provide further trade density for more homes. I think that we could double this height again and get more moderate income units, which would be fantastic, I think. So I hope that Council considers extending this program.
Thanks so much for your time this evening. I don't see any councillors to ask questions, so thanks. That's it for this evening, and I'm going to move on to the next caller, who is Peter Chung. Just before we go to Mr. Chung, I am going to read out the number again, just so if people do want to participate in this public hearing, please call 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 4034779 hashtag. And again, all that information is on the live stream. And we've got now Peter Chung, who's calling in. Clerks, do we have Mr. Chung there?
Mr. Chung, go ahead.
Mayor, Council.
Thanks very much for calling in, Mr. Chung. You have up to 5 minutes, and I'll start your timer whenever you're ready.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council, as well as community members. As mentioned, my name is Peter Chung. I am one of the directors of a community service provider here in the Mount Pleasant neighborhood. I'm relatively new to the role since April 1st, so I basically only been seeing COVID days. We are still open serving the community, and it has been about 40 years. Today, I'm quite excited to learn about this project without necessarily naming our organization, because I don't want to speak on behalf of the organization itself. I'm quite excited about this particular project, wishing to bring housing, affordable housing, if I add, to the public here in the Vancouver community. We do serve a lot of people, and usually a lot of them are in this range of low to moderate income point of view. While I do want to express my support, I do want to bring to your awareness that the necessity of providing service in this area, as one of the organizations here providing service, I want to urge the city as well as developers not to forget about this aspect. I think there's importance of community space, which you are providing certainly in the areas that you have presented. That being said, I think as a whole neighborhood, there is still a need that needs to be met encountering the issue of social isolation, and also with physical distancing going on these days. That space is almost a commodity, but certainly something that we should be remembering of. Sometimes we do things like back-to-school fair and also maybe Christmas events, whatnot, holidays, and this requires space, and with more people in the neighborhood, maybe more space is required as well, so that everyone can enjoy a good time together while receiving needed service. Second point I want to bring up is related to this terminology of moderate income, and it's quite funny because I was bringing it up with the staff, just trying to get everybody's opinion. I think they were quite intrigued by this whole project. That being said, the word moderate income to make them think, oh, okay, this is for maybe a certain group within the society, and ignoring some. I myself is actually an artist, and I know the Mount Pleasant community is quite a place for the artist community. That being said, with COVID going on and just how all the distancing requirements really hitting income of this circle, the moderate income range feels a bit hard for people as well. And so I don't know if that changes our criterion. I know this is a pilot, so maybe there's a wiggle room. So that's just want to bring that up. I personally fit in there. Some of my staff certainly do as well. And we will be quite interested to learning more from a personal point of view. Lastly, point number 3, just at this point of parking, I saw in the presentation earlier that this desire to increase the number of parking than the original proposed equal to the number of units, so which is appreciated. We do see a need to increase, even though a lot of the service recipients in our area do not necessarily rely on driving and parking, but I do think as more people come in, and even for our volunteers that sometimes come in for a little bit more far away, but just giving us a helping hand, there is a need for parking in the area as well, and I think certainly want to address that on site, but at the same time too is something around the area is going to help out to a thriving neighborhood that's increasing in population. With that in mind, that's all my 3 points regarding service, the term moderate income, and also around parking. We appreciate your support here, and we look forward to continue serving our community here in Mount Pleasant of Vancouver. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your comments and your input on this project today. I don't see any councillors with questions for you, so I'm going to move on to the next speaker. But before I do, I just wanted to thank you so much for participating this evening. Now I'm going to call for speakers. Is that right, Clerk, or do I go back through the list?
Mayor Stewart, you can call for additional speaker, and then we can patch them through.
Okay, Council, so I am going to call 3 times for additional speakers. And again, the number to call is 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 4034779 hashtag. That's all on the live feed if you need those numbers again. And I realize we do have some speakers on the line, so I'd ask you just to state your name before you start speaking, and we'll go to the first speaker, clerks.
Yes, sir. We have Evan Davis on the line.
Great. Mr. Davis, if you you've got the 5 minutes.
Please press.
We're ready to go, Mr. Davis.
So
hello?
Speakers,
please go ahead up to 5 minutes, Mr. Davis. Oh.
Hi there. I am a resident of Vancouver, and I am a concerned citizen regarding the social capital of the Mount Pleasant area. I am worried that...
Thanks for... just 1 second. This is the mayor here, if I can interrupt you. Sorry, we've just got our wires a little crossed. Can you state your name before you start, and I'll start your timer up to 5 minutes.
Okay, yes, for sure. My name is Clara Allen, and
okay.
I am a resident of the Mount Pleasant area, and my major concern is the social capital of our community. I'm worried that having such a large infrastructure, 2 large infrastructures, are going to not only divide but also segregate the community. It's also going to have a lot of sun and a lot of kind of degradation happening within our community, and I feel like having such a huge infrastructure in the middle of a bunch of like 4 to 3-story buildings is really going to put like a huge kind of barrier in there. There's also a beautiful park right beside there that I'm worried about the sun. People really enjoy that park. It's a huge place for communities to gather. Lots of people take their children there and play sports. And I just don't think that it's going to benefit anyone having such a 14-story building in that area. The reason that Mount Pleasant is such a beautiful place is because the sky is so large there. Like, we have downtown, We have Canby Street, we have Marine Drive, we have all these places with huge skyscrapers. This is not the area for it. I'm so strongly, you guys need to reconsider the area that you're building, this enormous building. It just is completely going to change the dynamic of the neighborhood. I'm such a supporter of using that space productively. I think having stores there is a great addition. I think that place is really growing, and I'm a huge supporter of that. I love how many bike spots you guys are adding and some parking. It's going to be great. But 14 stories in that area is just totally going to change the entire dynamic of it. I honestly can't stress it enough. It's like one of my favorite places to be. I love walking around there. But it's going to turn into another Canby Street, and it's just going to break all of our hearts. All of these houses are shared houses. Everyone there is thriving, and we're trying to do our best, especially in the circumstances that are going on in this community right now with COVID. People are really trying to social distance, but they're also trying to enjoy themselves. It's a very terrible time for all of us, but we're trying to make the best of it, and I feel like this construction is really just going to put a huge damper on the neighborhood and change the complete dynamic of it. That's my main point. I am worried about the social capital, and yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much for taking. Okay, well, thanks so much for calling in this evening. I don't see any questions from councillors for you, but thanks again for participating and letting your views be known. So we'll be moving on to the next speaker. And when you come on the line, could you just say what your name is? And I'll start your timer.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Can you hear me?
Yes, could you just state your name and I'll start your timer.
Yeah, sorry, I was previously on the list, but I missed the call-in time. My name's Daniel Holloway. I think you had it backwards with a typo previously, but that happens.
Sorry about that.
No, I'm sure it's my own fault. Anyways, yeah, I'm calling in to express my support for this building. I live at Main and 7th in a secured rental building, about 6 minutes walk from this property. And I'd really like to see more buildings like this in the neighborhood. Lots of young families here, older people, and really that nice mix that makes our city what it is. As you know, our city is in desperate need of renewed rental stock, but also rental housing that's attainable for a working person. I work for the provincial government, so I'm right in that sort of teacher firefighter range, and I think if you approve this project, you'll help deliver a number of new secure purpose-built rental homes to our city. Not going to be any displacement, which I know is an ongoing concern, and as I mentioned, those homes will be reserved for people like myself and my colleagues that work in the city and the surrounding neighborhoods. And I really like that lots of people have expressed their opinion on this mix of retail and smaller scale development in terms of not the big box stores, which your last caller alluded to about Canby Street. And I think, getting away from that and improving the pedestrian access along Kingsway would really support this. So I really hope all councillors vote in favor of this project.
Thank you so much for calling in, sir. I appreciate it, and thanks for your comments. I don't see any questions from council for you. So again, I'm going to call for a second time for speakers. Please call 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 4034779 hashtag to get on the list. Clerks, after my second call, is there anyone else on the line?
Yes, Mayor. So we have one more speaker on the line. Evan Davis, are you on the line?
Mr. Davis?
Hi there, Council. Yep.
Okay,
Evan
thanks.
Davies
Up to
here.
5 minutes, so please go ahead. Yep. Well, Davies, yes, please go ahead.
I just want to echo what a number of people's comments in support of the project going forward. I live in Fraserhood, a couple of blocks away from the site. It's a young, up-and-coming neighborhood, and I think more and more of my friends would live in the neighborhood if the housing stock was available. So I echo the sentiments from all the previous speakers who are supportive of the project, and I just wanted to add my 2 cents. That's all I have.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for calling in and taking the time. I don't have any questions from council for you. So thanks again for taking the time this evening. I am going to call one final time for speakers. The number is 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 4034779 hashtag. Clerks, do we have anybody else on the line?
No, Mayor Stewart, we don't have additional speakers on the line.
Okay, then I think seeing there are no speakers, the speakers list is now closed, and as no public comments were received on this item after 5 p.m. today, I suggest we now close the receipt of public comments and move on to hearing closing comments, asking questions to staff, and making a decision. Does the applicant team have any closing comments?
No, we do not. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Does staff have any closing comments?
No, nothing. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Okay, questions from council. I see Councillor Hardwick on the queue, so I'm going to queue this up. Councillor Hardwick, any of questions to staff only at this stage? Please go ahead.
This is really a point of personal privilege, and that is, I just wanted to point out that through the public hearing, the speakers have not indicated whether they are Vancouver resident or non-resident. Some have voluntarily done that. I just wanted to bring it to our attention as something that we should be adhering to.
Okay.
So I just wanted to put that out there, and also for the note to the city clerk. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks. And any questions for staff at this point?
No, thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. Any other questions to staff, council? I don't see anybody on the queue, so we'll make the decision on this application. Can we have a mover? Councillor Dejanova?
So moved, Councillor Dominato.
No, Councillor Dejanova. I was on the queue to move it with the two additional documents dated June 23rd, 2020, Mr. Mayor, which I understand had to be moved alongside the motion to be correct. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Do we have a seconder for this?
Councillor Dominato.
I'm sorry, I heard 5 names at once. So I think I saw Councillor Dominato second, so we'll go for Councillor Dominato on the seconder. And I have you on the queue, Councillor Dejanova. Did you want to say anything about this or debate this project?
No, not at this time. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Swanson, please go ahead.
Yeah. So there's good things and bad things about this. One problem is there's still really no satisfactory plan to mitigate traffic pollution on our arterials, and we're still building lots of housing on them, and I would be way happier if we were dealing with that. Another thing that I think is a problem is there's only 44 units at moderate income. I don't think that's enough. And I did a little bit of math, and if this goes through, we will have approved 308 units tonight, 86% of them for people earning over 70K, and just 14 units, 14% for people who are earning not 30K, but 38K. If you look at the report carefully, that's where the rents start. $950 a month is for someone earning 38K. So we have 14% for people earning 38K to 80K, nothing for people earning below 38K. On the other hand, the positives are no windowless bedrooms, no rich door and poor door, amenity access for all is good, vacancy control is the best part of it, and I checked out the area, and don't think it's going to be gentrifying the surrounding area much, so I'm going to vote for it.
Thank you, Councillor Swanson. Councillor Wiebe, up to 5 minutes.
Yeah, I'll be voting in support. I really appreciate the rent-controlled units, the no inboard units. But the main component of this is the fact that this will be the catalyst project for a community-born initiative in the St. George Rainway as the headwaters. I think it's critical that this becomes an integral piece that's going to connect the neighborhood. And from someone that's been on the Mount Pleasant Community Plan initiative and watched for 10 years this discussion happen, it's amazing to watch the first piece here be created and how that can be a legacy moving forward. I also really appreciate the shadow studies that were done to ensure that Robson Park gets as much sunshine as possible and pushing it to the 4 p.m. And the use of all the roof space and the design of the building. So really look forward to seeing how that interface and public realm plan comes forward, as well as the connection down St. George Way across Kingsway, because I think the original design had people walking a block over, and I think this will be critical to ensure that we get people from the hospital utilizing this space. So really appreciative of the change to the projects and a lot of the amendments in Amendment B, so I will be supportive.
Thank you. Councillor Kirby-Yung.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm pleased to speak in support of this project as well. It's interesting to see the evolution. It's an interesting example between the previously approved under Rental 100 and now newly applying or sort of coming under the MERT program, because it essentially doubles the number of rental units from the 109 to 215. And at a time when, and I'll say pre-COVID, we had a less than 1% vacancy rate in the city, knowing that we have a dearth of rental housing, and particularly achievable in terms of monthly rents rental housing. I think that the project is significant. So I'm pleased to see that. It's also good to see overall support from the community and a mix of support coming from gentlemen that worked from a community service organization in the area to current residents and previous ones as well. I will say that I think that there's several components that I really hope are followed through on that contribute to the livability, and that's really around the green space, the public gathering space that was mentioned, in terms of what that landscaping and that greenery, that public engagement at the human realm, the human level looks like, and including the interface onto St. George Street, because that is really what makes people feel that it's got some degree of human scale to it. It is not sort of a monolithic building, and I know there's building design elements that alleviate that, but that it does create that connection. And then finally, I'll make the same comment that I made with the previous project that we had in South Canby Village, and that's about sort of a plea on the CRUs that hopefully applicants can partner with the city in creating that sense of local community and supporting local business through breaking up into smaller CRUs as opposed to the longer ones. And I don't mean just from a design perspective, the long expanse, but I mean just in terms of number of tenants, because the smaller units based on smaller square footage become more affordable. We do know we have very expensive rents there, but if we can have those local businesses, it really does contribute to the character of the neighborhoods, and we know that it keeps a lot more money in our local economy. So that would make it a win for me, and put the cherry on the top, if you will. But I'm happy to support it because we desperately need purpose-built rental and secured market rental units in the city. Thank you. Oh, and then lastly, I would just say, because it's quite frankly, it's obvious, but it bears repeating, home ownership is just simply out of reach for a lot of people in the city, and more than half of our residents are renters, and that will grow. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Boyle.
Thanks, and actually much of what I was going to say has already been said, so I won't take up a lot of time except to say also very enthusiastic to support this project, recognizing the huge need for secure rental housing across the city and the vacancy-controlled moderate income units. And I appreciate how many residents spoke in support of welcoming new neighbors and sharing the park and the beauty of the neighborhood with more neighbors being able to enjoy them and join in as neighbors. So I'm happy to support it, glad to see it, and appreciate the changes that have been made since the Rental 100 project to better meet the needs that we hear so clearly from residents across the city.
Thank you. Councillor Dominato.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to staff and the applicants for the presentation. I've really appreciated following the evolution of this, and particularly because as I was listening both to the staff presentation but also to the applicant's presentation, it strikes me that it's sort of a win-win-win across so many facets of things that we're considering in the city. Councillors have already spoken to the rental component around the need for market rental and moderate income rental. But what I heard also was a focus on families, the ground-oriented townhome component, the outdoor amenity space. Really appreciated the attention to evolving the building, in particular, the actual build itself, and just the considerations around the park, the shadowing, the traffic. It was really fulsome, and it felt like there was a real intentional desire to respond to different concerns that had been raised, and I really appreciate that. I'm extremely excited about the Rainway, excited about the reallocation of the street space. We've been talking about that a lot, and seeing that actually come to life with the closure of St. George's and the public space, as well as the attention to also the pedestrian crossings. We hear a lot about that in the city, and increasingly as we densify, we focus on these complete communities. People are not using vehicles, they're moving about in different ways, and we're encouraging that. We also have to make sure that there's that kind of infrastructure that ensures that people feel safe crossing our major arterials and routes, and so I was really appreciative of that as well. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that. But it struck me that that what we're seeing here and what we're getting potentially is something better than what was envisioned under Rental 100, and I really appreciate that there was a lot of special attention paid to adapting and respecting the neighborhood as well as the park and the potential even for more park space. I think that's exciting as well. So great job, and I'm supportive of the application. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Carr.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Actually, Councillor Dominato just covered all but one of my points, so I'm just going to say ditto to what she put forward. The one additional point that points me in the direction of supporting this project is really the fact that this program does enable actual suites to be rented at a level geared to income that is affordable at 30% of the gross household income. And I remember when the program was brought in, it was last term on council, that there was a concern that we wouldn't find applicants willing to kind of deliver that level of affordability, which is the true level of affordability. And we do have applicants willing to do that, and not only that, design buildings which are environmentally sensitive, and in terms of the shadowing and the access to the increased access to Robson Park and the enabling of the St. George Greenway. So all in all, a good project, and I really congratulate the applicant on the sensitivity in responding to the kind of community issues that are so important here.
Thank you. Councillor Dejanova.
Thanks so much, Mr. Mayor. Just to wrap up on the motion, I wanted to say, of course, I moved it along with the two memos dated on June 23rd, 2020, as noted, because we are in a quasi-judicial body. I thought it was important to note that. But I also wanted to say that in really listening to the speakers, the hope and the positivity for the community, but also the love of the neighborhood now really came through. But the need for more family housing and knowing that this is going to benefit many families and that there are family-sized units. I was happy to hear that there were 3-bedroom units. That being said, I don't necessarily think that it's a benefit not to have the inboard bedroom or the borrowed light bedrooms. I mean, they still have windows. They borrow light from other rooms. So I just wanted to say that that wasn't a deal breaker for my support of this project. That being said, I think that it's important that there are childcare facilities nearby. I wonder, and this crosses my mind. However, I've read in the policy report. I mean, understanding if childcare could have been offered on site would be nice to know. As we move forward, it would be nice to know kind of, how much childcare is going to be needed, considering the amount of housing that is needed in areas like this. But I think that it really is a hub of the community and in Mount Pleasant. That being said, I also want to acknowledge the speaker, Ms. Allen's comments in opposition, and understanding that, it can be difficult when we need to change our neighborhoods and make room for density. And I know that this may, and I want to say that I listen to that, but I also think that we do need to make room for those families, and seeing the amount of oversight and the level of effort that's gone into this, both with our planning staff, but also with the applicant team. Happy to support this, and I think that this really does move towards what I had promised that I would strive for, which is a family-friendly Vancouver. So just wanted to note that, and really thank the applicant and our staff team as well, Mr. Mayor, for all of the work that they've done together. And just also wanted to acknowledge that I did hear the comments in opposition, and also to that, I think we have to consider the affordability of the neighborhood. And although Councillor Swanson, to your point, I also was doing the math. I also am aware that that number of units will add to our target and our goal, and we know that we are nowhere near there because we're still receiving correspondence from people who unfortunately want to live in Vancouver but can't afford to do so. So I hope that today this will move forward and we'll get one step closer to that. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Council, before I call the vote, I just have a few comments, and they're basically, wow, this is a great project. I really think this lays down a challenge to other builders in the city to not only incorporate the affordability and the thoughtful design and the integration into the community, but also environmental sustainability. This is an amazing project that I'm very glad we got to hear from this tonight and it's come forward. So I want to thank the proponent for this, for taking the time to first go through the Rental 100 application and then participate in this pilot program with such gusto. I also want to thank the staff for really doing all this work to get us to this stage. So I know there's more work to do, but I think this will be an enormous contribution to the community, in addition to the community in so many ways. So I want to thank the proponent again and staff, and for council too for doing this after such a long day. So with that, I will call the vote. And we have, that has passed with none in opposition. So thank you very much, Council, for all that work today. So we do have, need a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Councillor DiGenova.
Seconder?
Councillor Wiebe.
Councillor Wiebe, thanks very much. We'll do yays and nays. All in favor say yay.
Yay.
And opposed say nay. Okay, thanks very much, Council. We're adjourned. We'll talk to you tomorrow morning. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you, staff.
Thanks, staff.
Thank you.
Staff.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thanks a lot.